For most of the 20th century, the rules of economic survival were simple. Get a university degree, secure a desk job, and you were safe. White-collar work served as the ultimate fortress against manual labor and financial instability. But that fortress has been breached. In 2024, the International Monetary Fund published an assessment that broke the illusion of white-collar security. They found that in high-income, digitized economies, 60% of jobs faced deep exposure to artificial intelligence. The market reacted violently. By May 2025, a sudden $2 trillion wipeout in software stocks, a crash analysts dubbed the SaaSpocalypse, acted as an alarm bell. It was the leading indicator that companies were preparing to clear out their desks. Looking at this chart tracking corporate workforce reductions, the data is undeniable. Giants like Oracle, Intel, and Microsoft executed massive cuts. They were actively replacing human programmers and administrative staff with autonomous AI agents. These cuts represent a pivot in how corporations operate. Instead of cyclical downsizing to save costs, companies are integrating AI agents into their core workflows to achieve efficiency gains that human workers previously provided. This brings us to a phenomenon labor economists call the paper ceiling. Because employers now assume AI tools allow anyone to instantly produce mid-level work, the entire concept of the entry-level position is disappearing. The World Economic Forum has highlighted the sheer scale of this churn. Their data projects that 92 million roles will be displaced globally by 2030, and the vast majority of those lost jobs are concentrated directly in cognitive fields. The immediate impact hits recent graduates the hardest. This graph tracks the divergence between AI adoption and early career hiring. You can see the job-finding rate for 22 to 25-year-olds plummeting by up to 16% compared to pre-ChatGPT levels. The traditional professional learning curve, the years you spend figuring out your industry, is now automated. Right now, over 60% of so-called entry-level IT jobs require at least 3 years of actual experience, leaving an entire generation stranded. Structured digital information is AI's native territory. Because of that, the most highly educated and prestigious professions have ironically become the most vulnerable targets for displacement. Why can a computer instantly replace an elite software engineer earning 6 figures, but completely fail to replace a local plumber fixing a sink? The answer lies in a decades-old concept from computer science known as Moravec's paradox. It is the invisible rule currently driving our entire economic shift. The paradox observes that high-level reasoning, logic, data synthesis, and the things we usually associate with the educated class is computationally very easy and extremely cheap for an AI to process. But low-level sensory motor skills, like walking up a set of stairs, interpreting nonverbal cues, or navigating a messy, unpredictable physical room, are extraordinarily difficult and expensive to replicate in robotics. Computation has entirely inverted the historical hierarchy of human skills. What takes years of college to learn is now trivial for a machine to execute. Meanwhile, our most basic physical instincts and movements remain completely irreplaceable. To map out what survives, researchers developed the AI Resistance Score, or ARS. On this radar chart, it scores occupations based on 4 specific barriers AI struggles to breach: physical presence, human relationship, creative judgment, and ethical accountability. First is the infrastructure moat. Notice the massive physical presence scores for electricians, plumbers, and HVAC technicians. A technician fixing a furnace in a century-old basement has to evaluate dozens of unstandardized variables, sounds, smells, and physical deterioration that a digital model cannot capture. There is a deep irony here. The AI economy itself relies heavily on massive spikes in physical trade labor. Demand for robotics techs and HVAC engineers has surged to build and cool the sprawling server farms powering these digital brains. Then there is the operating room moat. Clinical healthcare roles like surgeons and nurse practitioners score exceptionally high in human relationship and ethical accountability. AI might assist in diagnostics, but the physical delivery of care, the chaos management of a hospital floor, and the legal liability of a life or death decision legally require a human being. Corporate survival depends on the orchestrator moat. The roles left standing are pivoting away from task execution toward high-stakes strategic negotiation. Hosing a complex deal means reading cultural nuances and navigating human egos, tasks that lie entirely outside the reach of language models. But we have to dispel the myth of blanket blue-collar safety. A plumbing business might be secure, but its back-office staff, the dispatchers and schedulers, are facing the exact same automation risks as corporate administrators. A job's survival is no longer dictated by its perceived prestige. It survives based on its absolute reliance on unpredictable physical reality, deep emotional connection, or heavy legal liability. The prestige of information-based work is wavering, pushing some professionals back toward physical craftsmanship. Janet Feenstra, an academic editor in Sweden, saw her specialized field marginalized by AI and chose to pivot to a bakery in Malmö. For digital creatives who didn't jump early, the economic fallout has been harsh. Freelance writers are reporting clients bluntly dropping them for AI tools, forcing abrupt and stressful career realignments just to maintain basic health insurance. Researchers at Oxford University found a strong correlation backing this up. The probability of automation directly correlates with the nature of the task. The economy now aggressively punishes digital information synthesis while rewarding physical action. Look at this chart comparing starting wages. The trend lines show the compensation for skilled trades crossing and exceeding the pay of junior office roles. Driven by this financial reality, the historical stigma gap is closing, with nearly 80% of Americans stating that negative perceptions of trade work are rapidly fading. The data suggests the gap between these two worlds is closing. With trade wages rising and office security falling, 75% of Americans now say their definition of a good job has changed since 2021. The expert consensus across major institutions is clear. Total job replacement is rare, but universal role reshaping is imminent, affecting over half of the United States workforce in the next few years. Future-proofing your career requires a radical move away from pure information synthesis, which is now the undisputed domain of the machine. Even elite training grounds like Harvard Law are seeing the value shift from drafting contracts to mastering complex human negotiation. We are entering the era of the last human mile. This refers to the specific physical, emotional, and ethical elements of work that artificial intelligence can support but completely fails to finalize. The goal isn't to hide from AI. The strategy is to actively use AI to automate the repetitive drudgery of task execution, freeing yourself up to focus entirely on human context, legal accountability, and genuine empathy. The ultimate contrarian move is mastering the physical foundation or emotional orchestration of society. We will secure our highest economic value exactly where we are most distinctly human,